So, the latest patch for Wuthering Waves revealed a lot. Like, a lot. Not only giving everyone in the mama generational levels of emotional damage, but also drip-feeding a shit ton of world building and lore. Just enough to chew on so you can ignore the stabbing pain you feel in your chest after listening to Voyaging Stars Farewell for like the millionth time in a row. And in the middle of bawling your eyes out, you might not have noticed some pretty big bombshells, but don't you worry, I'm here to help. In the first hour of the game, we come across a ruined space station that actually belonged to the Corte Savante. Yeah, those guys, remember them? Way back in like, what, 1.0? P.S. I made a video about this, you can check it out. What was once this elusive, mysterious organization in the lore is still an elusive, mysterious organization. But hey, at least we know something about them now. First major bombshell, these guys were in space. Like, the Sky Arc was actually in space. It was like so frequent they had school field trips to go up to the Sky Arc station. So this was like what, before the Etheric Sea had actually covered Solaris. Most of the research on the Sky Arc was about harnessing the Etheric Sea's power to transcend space and time, and we see the effects of that research, using the mass relays all over the station to teleport across large areas of the Sky Arc. Mass relays like a fucking plain Mass Effect. Moving on further, a researcher by the name of Junshi talks about the massive strides that they made in using the Etheric Sea as a portal due to its unique properties to transcend time and space. These guys, they had ambitions, trying to use the Etheric Sea to reach further than Solaris and possibly beyond. But then he mentions that none of this research would have been possible without the help of a mysterious benefactor, Miss Wei Ying. But before we could see who his benefactor was, the feed cuts off. Going further down the station and having a tussle with Buzz Lightyear, we come across a video, which leads to our second bombshell.
Luuk. Someone's falling straight from the Etheric Sea.
Alright, now let's clear up one misconception. This footage is not from the beginning of the game. This was recorded when the magnetic pole of Solaris had shifted, forming the Lahai that we know now. When Rover had fallen down to Solaris at the beginning of the game, Lahai was already like a snowy wasteland, so this footage is old. Very old. But Rover falling from space into the Etheric Sea down to Solaris, what does it even mean? Well, this leads to our third bombshell. Rover is an alien. I think. I'm gonna be honest, this one's not even really like much of a mystery. Us from the Sky is already proof of this. But then it's also like unique aspects of Rover. For one thing, Rover is old. Like, old. Resonators have increased lifespans, but not to the extent that Rover has. And our past actions can pretty much attest to this. But it's a factoid that both Aemeath and Luuk make a note of. Man, that's gotta be depressing. All these characters are gonna be dead long before us. It's not fun to think about. Depressing stuff aside, this quest gives us so many pieces to the puzzle that is Rover. When speaking to our daughter Aemeath, Rover reveals that their home is far, far from Solaris. But most importantly, they were given a mission. The simplest way they can explain it to Aemeath is that their mission is to save the world, and they have to complete that mission, for as long as it takes. The quest goes out of its way to kind of show that despite the bravado that Rover puts on, they're pretty homesick. They dream and yearn for this homeland. But where exactly is this place that Rover is trying to go back to? Well, luckily for us, the quest gives us clues to that too. This homeland civilization, from what we can gather from clues in the story, are a hyper-advanced race apparently so powerful that the offshoot of the Corte Savante referred to them as gods, way back in 1.0. We also learned that this civilization that Rover belongs to is also the origin of the Sentinels and the Exostrider. In fact, Aemeath learns an important truth about the Exostrider, which leads to our fourth bombshell. The Exostrider is a vessel built to deliver Sentinels to Solaris. So this thing is a delivery truck. It has combat capabilities, sure, but it's nowhere near the same level as a Sentinel. But as much as I want to dunk on it for just being a glorified delivery truck, this thing is still cracked and really only goes to show how crazy powerful the civilization is. For just a vessel, the Exostrider, it can create life. Life in the form of the Exoswarm and the Solar Skin. And its heart can also sustain life, like it did with Lahai for years. It's like using a truck engine to power a country. It's wild. But then again, I guess it should be expected. They did create the Sentinels after all. Damn. All this effort, all these resources they're pouring into Solaris, surely it's for a good cause, right? Right? To touch on the homesickness thing again, we learned in the quest that rovers actually be sending messages back to their civilization with one simple request: to go home. But every request to return was denied, with the clear message that their return was unnecessary for the mission. This inner turmoil, mixed with Aemeath's anger and a void storm, gave birth to Sigilum, who harbors rovers' desires to return home. But what exactly is this mission, and why is it so damn important that they've constantly denied rovers' request to return home? Yeah, Rover says it's to save the world, but again, that's the simplest way that they can explain it to Aemeath. We don't know what's so special about Solaris that they're sending Sentinels here to guide civilization. Assuming it's special at all. I'm of the belief that there's nothing special about Solaris, like, whatsoever. And this is just the civilization's MO. Their MO for what? I got no clue. Maybe it is something as simple as just stopping the lament, but unfortunately, we don't really have much evidence about their goals. Their reason for bringing the Sentinels, their mission for a rover, then building the Strider Gate. Wait a sec. The Sentinel the Exostrider was carrying, what happened to it? It is never mentioned in the game or even alluded to. Did Aleph 1 eat it? Is it even a Solaris? The last few plot threads we have all relate to the big bad organization of the game, the Fraxidus. In Luuk's segue story, we learned that he has close ties with the shady organization. His dad, as it turns out, was the leader of this company known as Noviale. This company aimed to create further means of treating rare diseases and poured their research into creating what was known as Ichor. But as progress developed, the group had decided that treating diseases, that shit wasn't cutting it anymore, and they decided to bring out their inner umbrella, turning the drug into a means of furthering evolution for mankind. And like moths to a flame, the research of evolution caught the eye of the Fraxidus. During the process of creating the drug, Luuk had resonated with the Ichor, being the only one to ever survive its effects, at the cost of searing pain and permanent loss of color, except for gold. Every other subject, they weren't so lucky. But it wasn't until meeting Rover that Luuk had decided to look a little bit into Noviale, and that's when he discovered how deep the Fraxidus has stuck their hand into the research of Ichor. And when I say deep, I mean deep. Spoiler alert, Luke's father was a Grand Architect. He had gotten into the research for Ichor, then died to put an end to the charade with the company. It wasn't until Luuk tried to have his grave exhumed that he realized the truth. When the Grand Architect had switched with his real father, even Luuk doesn't know. So, needless to say, Luuk was a little mad, and hatred is a pretty good motivator. Together with Rover, he tried to gather intel on the organization and stop them at whatever chance he got, eventually before being stationed at Lahai, where he remained till this day. And speaking of intel, Luuk proceeds to then shine a huge-ass light on some of the members of the Fraxidus. From him, we learn that the Fraxidus are pretty much a bunch of theater kids, using codenames as a method of conveying their personality. We had already met Phrolova and Christophoro, or if we were to go by their nicknames, Hecate and Arachnos, and we already know the goat, Scar. But then Luuk proceeds to reveal other members of the group. First things first, what does every good crime syndicate need? That's right, bread. Hella bread. And the person in charge of the finances is Eris, the overseer situated in the new Federation. Their job? Securing their stream of wealth, which gives them almost endless resources. So pretty much, they're in charge of getting their money up. Then there's Hydra, the overseer responsible for the body modifications of the artificers, and your partner in crime, Siren. They're like two peas in a pod, where one is, the other isn't far behind. Finally, there's Zashiki Wadashi, situated all the way in Ashinohara, so they won't be too much of a problem until we have to go there ourselves. Those are pretty much all the overseers that Luuk gives intel on. Maybe there are more members, but we don't know yet. Now, all this is well and good, but what about the Grand Architect? As of now, we know nothing about them. Who they are, how old they are, zilch. All we know about them is that they're old as shit, and they go by a title, the Thousand-Faced Survivor. They're given that name because of their special ability, mimicry. The Grand Architect can shapeshift to anyone, right down to your frequency. We see this in Phrolova's quest when they impersonate Triss, a long-deceased friend of Phrolova, Karen, the ferryman of death in this universe, and a random acolyte in Shuriren's story, and two other people that I'm about to get into. Now here's where things start to get interesting. During the quest, Navora, the girl that accompanied us to the Sky Arc station, is kidnapped by Warren, the Fraxidus spy we confront in 3.0, and is taken to the space station where he was supposed to meet with another Fraxidus member. Luuk quickly incapacitates him before looking over Navora for injuries, but as Luke's back is turned, Navora picks up a gun left by Warren before coming to execute Luuk. This fails, and then they get into a brief fight. It's only after Luuk 360 no-scopes are asked and the shocking truth is revealed. Navora, the girl we traveled with, was the Grand Architect, a shocking revelation that most of us already called during the first quest. Rover eventually swoops into Aura form, like they usually do. Then together they confront Navora, who gifts them with 2 special prizes. 1. There's a Fraxidus spy set to wreak havoc at the upcoming New Solar Celebration. And now with 3.2 out, we have an idea who this is. And don't worry, I won't spoil it. Play the game for yourself. The second prize is a bit more impactful. In a room not explored by the group during Aemeath's story, Luuk and Rover find files relating to the lead researcher and the Etheric Sea Initiative, this Miss Wei Ying. In the files, Luuk finds her name and makes a connection to the pen he had collected by chance. This chance most likely when he was raiding a Fraxidus base. This pen had markings engraved on it, the same markings as the name in the files, and in this quest we learned that the pen belonged to the Grand Architect. So as I stated before, there were 2 more people that the Grand Architect had mimicked. One was Navora, and the other was Miss Wei Ying. So the CSC's Etheric Sea Initiative was funded by the Grand Architect under the guise of Miss Wei Ying. Whew, boy, that's a lot. But we're not done. With the reveal of the Grand Architect being Wei Ying, Rover questions if Luuk has any more intel about them. That's when Luuk reveals one more thing. After learning about Aemeath's death from overclocking a decade ago, Luuk makes a connection to the Thenodian seal in Biartur Woods. The Academy had detected cracks in the seal. Intentional cracks. Luuk speculates that the damage to the seal might have been done by the Grand Architect, meaning had they not damaged the seal, Aemeath would have never had to resonate with the Exostrider, leading her down this hole of death, rebirth, then being sealed away. Rover is naturally upset by this theory, so our next meeting with the Grand Architect, it won't exactly be smooth. That's another depressing little note. But with all that being said, I think that's about it. Thank you for watching the video. 3.2 just came out. I played it, loved it, of course. Not as gut-wrenching as 3.1, but it's a bit of a break from the emotional baggage we got from last quest. Plus, it's kind of nice to see all the Lahai cast again. And Zagrika, girl, you need new friends, honestly. But that's all for now. Like, subscribe. I hope to keep, I want to keep making more videos like this because I like Wuthering Waves. I like the lore, I like the story, I love the characters, I like the combat a lot. And yeah, I hope to keep making more videos like this. So, these are fun to make. But without all that being said, thank you again so much for watching. And I'll see you later. Bye.